Hello and welcome to Talk It Out, where we talk it out. My name is Duryea Rashad, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. It is the Thursday before Halloween, so big ups to everybody who's out there getting their Halloween on this week, and I'm excited to be here. So tonight we're going to talk about affirmative action. I've been hearing a lot of people over the internet who are saying affirmative action shouldn't still be a thing, and that it's actually a hindrance to the progression of racial inclusivity. So we're going to talk about that tonight. But before we do, I want to remind you, if this is your first time watching Talk It Out is a space where people of opposing viewpoints can get together and have a healthy, productive dialogue in a respectful way. Keeping in mind that it's not always about proving who's right and who's wrong. Sometimes it's simply about listening and being heard. Now, everybody who's been watching us from the beginning, I feel like y'all know that little intro by now. And I feel like when y'all see me on the street, make me feel like a celebrity, please, and just say the intro for me. Anyway, okay. So before we get into this, I want to make sure to tell you to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also share right now. Get people interacting live. So we're going to share things. We're going to have Woe Nelly talk it out and get us trending, maybe, so that we can have some good live interaction today. All right. Now, without any further ado, it is time for me to introduce our illustrious panel. First, we're going to start with our returning panelist. We have Miss, I'm actually going to say her introduction and then I'm going to say her name. She's a television and film professional, forever educating herself on ways to advocate for her community and her culture, be it politically and or socioeconomically. Her name is Keisha Watts. Hey, Key, how you doing?
Hey.
How are you?
Fine, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I feel like we're both doing the similar things with our hair. I don't know how I feel about that. I know, right? But I feel like I should be the only person right now. My face is so oily with this light. Do you notice that? I'm shining like shit.
You're shining bright like a diamond, looking good.
Okay, yeah, you got to flip it around. Okay, so catch us up. What's going on?
Nothing much. I just wanted to be a part of your show. You know, you try to catch me when I'm not crazy busy, but I'm glad I can make it happen to be here to talk about this. This is a really interesting topic because we have this affirmative action question on our ballot this year in California. So
really,
yeah,
that's
with
dope.
Colleges. Yeah.
See, I kind of thought it was kind of like a dead issue for real, but apparently it's not.
No.
Okay.
There's a lot of cases currently right now dealing with it.
Oh, okay. And so our next to our panel, actually, can you throw her social media back up again? If you want to contact Keisha Watts, you're going to go at K Watts Creative. That's KWATTS Creative, and that's on Twitter. All right. Next, returning to the panel is our good friend Justin. We have a bunch of Justins on here though, so we have to figure out how to differentiate. But this is Justin with a beard. That's what we're gonna go with. Okay. Justin is a Midwestern libertarian, and he has a new Facebook page where his followers can debate the values and the follies of trading observable liberties for illusions of security. That sounds incredibly interesting. You can find him on Facebook at the Disposable Mask Industrial Complex at D-Mask. Is that an LC? IC. D-Mask IC. So the letter D, the word mask, the letter I, the letter C. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Just living life, writing music and, political debates. Oh yeah, I'm a musician.
What kind of music? Let me guess. It's either rock or bluegrass.
Heavy metal. I've done some rock and roll. I've done some alternative stuff. For a couple years, I was doing some fusion between heavy metal and hip hop with some friends of mine that have been rapping out in the Midwest area here for a better part of a decade. So
dope. Okay. Yeah. That's very interesting. I didn't know that about you. All right. Mm-hmm. Next to the panel, you could say she's my best friend, especially if she's in the room. Her name is Emily Quarteroni. Emily Dotson Quarteroni.
Thank you.
Yes. Emily has a master's in American Studies with a graduate certificate in women's, gender, and sexuality studies. You're not going to talk about your bachelor's degree?
Well, I didn't know if it was relevant.
It doesn't have to be relevant. She also has a Bachelor of Fine Arts in theater performance for acting. She currently is working on her PhD in American Studies, which focuses on horror in American culture, which is actually, me and her like have that in common. We don't like the same type of horror movies though. She likes like Ghost and all that stuff. I like slasher. How are you doing, Emily?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm glad to see your face.
I know, it's been a while.
I know it's been a minute. So I'm glad you're here though, because I know your opinions are gonna definitely propel the conversation. All right. Next, returning to the panel is Mr. Dondre Henry. What it do? What's up? He is a Canadian artist and entrepreneur. You can find him on Instagram at Dre the Shadow, DRE the Shadow, as well as Twitter. Out of his many ventures, he has recently started a banking business to help bring joy to people through their sweet tooth during quarantine. You meant baking business?
Yes.
Okay. I'm reading the profile and I said, how was he? What does he got? Chocolate money? So I guess it's somewhere in translation. Baking turned into banking. By the way. Gotcha. So it's a baking business to help bring joy to people through their sweet tooth during quarantine. Wow. Look, as if we don't already have enough problems putting all this quarantine weight on.
Hey, people are enjoying the banana bread.
I blame people like you. All right. Next, returning to the panel is a great friend of mine and someone I very much admire. They're also my Shadowrun missions buddy. He's the GM on our Shadowrun missions, Mr. Danny. How you doing, Danny? Oh, he just waved at the camera for all the people listening.
That's right.
Danny is a storyteller and a writer working for Catalyst Game Labs, where he leads development of the Shadowrun RPG official campaign. Woot woot. Check us out Tuesdays, 8 o'clock on Twitch, Master of Rem. He's also the content director for Rem Alternis, a creative media outlet. They'll be publishing the first part of his graphic series, Cottlesworth Clockwork Circus, this winter. When he's not paneling for Talk It Out, he's tormenting me on Tuesdays in a Shadowrun live stream at twitch.tv/Master of Rem. I didn't read ahead. I'm sorry. I should have read ahead. Also, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Know, it's Thursday and we're here. We're going to talk about the things and the stuff and more.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right. So our next two panelists are new to the panel. They're first-time panelists. First, we're going to bring in this person reached out to me and they were like, they saw the show, was like, I want to be on the panel because I got shit to say. But actually, both of them said this, but the first one was a little bit more aggressive. And I know I'm going to say his last name wrong, so I'm going to let him say it when he comes on. Brian, how do I pronounce your last name?
Lunatic.
That's not what it is.
Did you hear that?
I heard it. Yeah.
No, it's Lidkey. Yeah.
Lidkey. Brian Lidkey.
It's like a lid and a key.
Lidkey. Got you. Brian Lidkey. Brian grew up on a farm in the Midwest. He has a bachelor's degree in English, speech, and in theater education, and a master's in public administration and political science. He's a retired veteran, an entrepreneur, and a lover of history and all things outdoors. How you doing, Brian?
Oh, not as good as you, but then perfection takes.
Aw, that's so sweet. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm great. If I'm doing cartwheels, backflips, if things were any better, there'd have to be two of me.
Okay, I like that. All right, and our final panelist here for the night is Mr. I'm gonna say Lancelot Johnson. His profile. I mean, the blurb I got said Lance, and then it said Lancelot. But I like Lancelot because it sounds more official. Right. He works in the community doing case management and outreach to individuals who are HIV positive and dealing with substance abuse. In his downtime, he loves food, anime, and getting back to his reading. He's a huge fan of Twilight. Twilight, that one specifically, or the whole saga?
All right, well, it's definitely the entire saga. Like, I have the 2 new books, the
ones that just came out.
Yeah, I just got that. I haven't read it yet, and apparently there's the one called Life Before Death, which I haven't read yet, but I have it sitting right here on my table. But I've been a little busy with work, so.
I read Twilight when I was in jail, and I was actually surprised that it was so interesting.
It's amazing. Like,
it caught me off guard that it was so interesting.
Yeah, I was the books had me.
I will say this for sure: the sparkling vampire sounded way cooler in the book than it did watching the TV on the movie.
Yeah. But the movies were a good adaptation to the books.
The book made it seem like they were just so beautiful, that they were just these epic, beautiful creatures. The movies made them look like fairies, like Tinkerbell, for real. Not even trying to be funny, like. Anyway.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so before we start into our current events, let's take a small commercial break. That was Shadowrun. Our Shadowrun missions that you can check out on Twitch, going to Master of Rem at Master of Rem, REM, on Twitch. We do them every Tuesday night. It's really fun. I've never done anything like this, and it actually is so nerdy, but it's so interesting at the same time. I hope you all come out and join us. But right now, it's time for current events. And this week, I was real serious about it because I was like, you know what? I'm tired of talking about Trump and Biden. I'm sick of it. I am sick of it. I'm ready for this election to be over so bad for all the wrong reasons. I told my mom the other day, I was like, I just don't want to see their faces no more for like a month and a half. Just go sit down somewhere. So I was online the other day, and I came across this video. It was this interracial couple. And I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I'm just telling you all the facts. It was this interracial couple, and the tire had gone out. And the guy was white, the girl was black. The white guy was like, he was on his phone, and he just looked so frazzled, like he had never seen a flat tire in his life. But the girl was literally down there, like looking at him, like changing the motherfucking tire. You know what I'm saying? Looking at him like, you don't know how to do this shit? And the dude's recording. The black dudes are recording. Oh, fuck. Oh, hell no, queen. Hell no. And got up and inserted themselves in these people's business. And he was like gonna call AAA, and she was basically saying, nah, I got it. So they basically made him get down and change the tire. And I personally got really offended because I felt like that was like the most accurate display of toxic masculinity. And like it was really oppressive to her. But in the comments, everybody was like, hell yeah, if I had a man, he gonna be changing tires. I ain't gonna be changing tires. They gonna be changing. So I wanted to have this conversation. In today's day and age, when we're talking about making women, putting them on an equal footing with men, like where are the lines? You know, when is it? Because I get what the dudes were saying, but I also feel like, first of all, it wasn't their business. Second of all, are you saying that she can't change the tire just because she's a woman? And third of all, like, because the white dude he was like, yo, you're not gonna talk to my girl like that. But there were 2 of them. So he didn't get too loud. And they were big as hell too. You know, so I just kind of want to know what everyone thinks about that situation. And should women nowadays, if you know you see a woman on the side of a road by herself or anywhere and she's changing a tire, or if she's with her boyfriend, is there something that we should do? Be letting women change their own tires or what? I know who I'm gonna go to first. Emily.
I mean, I don't even know what to say. Obviously, like anyone who wants to change a tire should have the right to change a tire. Right. I mean, this is one issue that I guess I am a little influenced by my childhood, because I remember my dad teaching my sister and me how to change a tire. And part of it was that he was like, you know, I don't want you to like be dependent on a man or whatever. So I guess I sort of even associate changing a flat with like a little bit of like women's lib or whatever. But it just, I mean, every woman is different. Like every person is different. So some women might want to be in a relationship in which they never have to change the flat. Some women might not mind changing the flat. Some women might want to be the one to change the flat. But like that's between that woman and whoever she's in a relationship with. And I think it's absurd that somebody inserted themselves that way and told her that she couldn't do something. It's anyway.
I mean, so does anyone feel like these two men did exactly what they should have done?
What was her reaction when they took over that?
It was really, she just got out of the way. She didn't really say anything. It just then became like it became the dude feeling like, you know what, like I have to like stand my ground. Like I don't know how to change a tire. It's not like I'm trying to like force. I don't know how to change a tire. I've never had to, and I'm not gonna let you talk to my girlfriend like that. I don't need y'all help. But like I told you, there were two. He was like a really slender, like 18-year-old white dude, and these dudes were like 40 and 50, and they were all like 6'3", black, and so it was kind of like a power struggle too. But her response was just to get out the way.
Okay, so it's a lot of things going on in there. It's like you said, it's you like people like needing to mind their own business. Number two, like I don't know, like it's a preference thing. I'm from the South, so moving out here to California, you're gonna have a lot of guys who do not know how to change tires.
I don't understand. What do you mean?
They do not know how to change. They don't know how to change a tire. I grew up with my uncles, my cousins showing me how to do it, just in case I was alone or something and had to do it. But when I moved out here, I got AAA because I didn't want to have to deal with that. But also talking to men, because this is a question that I've even asked when my friends joke about it. Like, how many of you guys actually know how to change a tire? And a lot of them who are from here do not know how to change a tire. And that I'm 34. No, 33. Oh my God. I'm 33.
Do that.
I got 2 more weeks. But I'm 33, so that is I want to say it's a turn off. I shouldn't say that. But it's sort of just like it will be a little awkward if I am changing the tire and you're standing there. Like that, I don't know. I would feel some type of way. I would act like I didn't feel some type of way, but I know I would feel something.
Okay.
Someone has to stand there and just watch. I mean,
well, let me go to. I want to hear from
you. Better help pass me some tools, like pass me.
Oh well, yeah, sure.
Like
participate. It could definitely be a couple's activity. It could definitely be a couple's activity. It can. But let me ask.
I want to hear Justin. Go, Justin. I want to hear.
Okay, yeah, sure. But Justin's the only one who said he actually feels like these two men were right for what they did.
Sure.
So let me hear it.
Sure. So here's my thinking is this is actually where the girlfriend went wrong. If she knew how to change the tire, that's great. But if he didn't, he was, like helpless and dependent upon AAA, but let's assume he's able-bodied and whatnot, that he could have been doing it himself. He was probably stressing, and if you know how to do something and somebody else doesn't, like maybe use that as a learning opportunity for growth, especially in a relationship, whether it's romantic or not, like, hey, oh yeah, nah, you don't need to be dependent upon this other service or whatever. I mean, like, let's say it's Christmas, on Christmas, you're going to call AAA, you're going to be waiting there for 6 hours.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, hey, this is how you do that. And I'd say that would probably go either way, a guy and a girl and a guy, you know what I mean?
But you feel like they were doing that, like, because I get what you're saying. You're saying as men, they were men, they were doing man time. Hey,
yep. So they filled that void that she probably didn't feel comfortable doing, telling a man how to change a tire or whatever. And so they were probably like, oh hell no, like No, I'm pretty sure you should be doing this. If you don't know how to do it, you need to learn how to do it because changing
They
the
really
flats
made him
really.
get down and change
But
it.
mind you, if they would have stayed out of their business, maybe he would have stood there and learned and watched her and learned how to change a tire.
Now,
But
let
But
me
he was
say
on the
this.
phone calling AAA.
Yeah, let me say this really quick before I hand it to Lance. The first time I learned how to change a tire, it was me and my friend Alex, and I was driving. We were at Wendy's, and I hit the curb. And I was driving, and then I was like, "Do you know how to change a tire?" She was like, "No," and I didn't know how to change a tire, so I just had to figure it out, which I did. It's not rocket science. It's really not. It's really not. Like, you look in the back, you see the 3 tools you need. Just figuring out how to jack it might be hard. Shut up. But other than that, it's not rocket science. Lance?
All right, so first of all, the fact that a woman is changing the tire and that's an issue is a whole thing in this. Why does a woman change the tire? Why does that have to be some big thing where people have to intervene? You know what I mean? And just to piggyback off what Emily said, she was taught how to change a tire, correct?
I wasn't. She was down there changing it, so.
Yeah, I've never been taught how to change a tire by my parents. You know what I mean? I had to learn from a friend how to do that. I did. So even someone just interjecting like, okay, now it becomes the whole thing where it's a black woman now changes tire and it's a white friend. So now is it because she's a woman or because this white man is watching this black woman change his tire? You know what I mean? So it becomes this whole big thing. But at the same time, I feel like it was none of your business. Why would you bother these people? They're getting it done. Why would you go out of your way to be like, why are you changing this tire and this man is right here? Why can't a woman change the tire?
Or ask her, do you mind if we change it for you? Like, do you
Something
mind?
like that, right?
Or
don't just insert yourself. Yeah.
Or just come up and like, because it sounds to me like I didn't see the thing, but it sounds to me like what happened was a oh hell no kind of thing, and that's the attitude they went in with, right? As opposed to like, hey, I wonder if that guy doesn't know how to change a tire. He probably would really like to know how to change a tire so that this doesn't come up again in the future. And then they walk up, do. Hey, brother, what's going on? Hey, talk. And I was like, so you don't know how to change a tire? Yeah. Hey, we could show you, and like just come at it that way, right?
Or she could just do it. I'm just saying, I don't see why he has to be taught how to do it.
Why did it become an issue where this woman is changing the tire? And this man, if he doesn't know how to do it, why is it an issue that this woman's changing the tire? Is it because she's a black woman, he's a white male? Is it because she's general? But why can't women
don't think it had anything to do with race. I really don't think it had anything to do with race. I think maybe her race, not necessarily. I think they were like, oh, this black woman, I don't want her down here. Maybe, but I don't really, it didn't come off like that was the emphasis, the most important thing. Dre?
It should have been like, okay, well, do you need assistance? Just like when people see people pulled over on the road with a smoking engine, whatever. Oh, can I help you? Not attack this man because she's changing the tire. Why the issue? Equal rights. Why can't a woman change a tire? Why can't a woman do the car?
We have to we have to mentally normalize those kind of things. Like, it's okay for a woman to be, because I think that's kind of sexy.
Yeah, thank you.
Dre, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off and just say that a woman can own a car, right?
Yes.
There won't always be a man there.
Wait, what?
Right?
Where did that happen?
A woman, no, because if a woman can own a car and there isn't always a man there, she can change her own tires if she knows how to. Now, I'm gonna say if I was a man, I didn't know how to change a tire, and I had AAA benefits, I'd use them. That's all. Like, it's. I don't think I'm gonna also bring up that I guess the 3 males that just popped out of nowhere, their age range may give them a different mentality
because they were older. That's true. That's true.
But they honestly had no reason just to pop up and give their 2 cents. The woman was already there doing her thing, and as Justin said, the woman could have honestly been like, "Hey, babe, check this out. This is how you do it."
Mm-hmm. She should have been supervising.
Right. It could have been a different, like a totally different experience. I guess it was all out of pocket.
It wasn't a learning experience. Like, it was just like, okay, we got a flat. I know how to change it. Let's do it. If it wasn't learning experience, let's stick this flat so we can get back on the road. Then it has to be a learning experience.
Like, if he wants to learn, cool. But if he doesn't,
but if he wants to chill and call for AAA, that's it.
Yeah.
They just want to get back on the road and get the fuck. Excuse me, and get to where they're going.
I feel like I said motherfucker like in the first 5 minutes.
Kick me off.
You know, at the end of the day, like, so the question, there's a kind of a question about like, should women whatever. Like, at the end of the day, you know, I would be helpful to whoever, man, woman. It's not a question of like, I think you can do it or I don't think you can do it. And I know that's not like the regular thing, right? But what I'm trying to get at is, like, if you want to help somebody, that's fine. Like, help woman, help a man, help whatever. But that's what I mean when I talk about the attitude that you're coming with it. You know, you're not like coming in with this attitude of, oh, you shouldn't be letting the woman do that, or, you know, anything like that. Even if that's what you think, like, even if that's what you think in the back of your head, you still, like, you don't come in and like make it about that. You know, you just come in and say, hey, it looks like there's people that need help and I'm helpful. And, you know,
I'm not helping no one on the road. I'm sorry, that's on your own.
Ryan, do you have anything to say about this?
I'm just sitting here listening, and I'm thinking, oh hell, my generation has really, really failed in millennials and all that on how to work some things.
Because we can't change tires.
Grew up where men and women both had to be part mechanic. Oh, you had to be part mechanic just to run a car.
Right.
Because these things could break down on the road at any time, and then you had to open up the hood, diagnose, fix it, and then limp home. And so I really feel bad that my generation has not taught millennials and all that how to do this. We do have how-to videos, but for God's sakes, you should be able to do something as simple as changing a tire. And don't be worried about the masculinity part of it. Because women who have fixed things on my, that I couldn't. And it was like, all right, girl, I'm going to buy you a beer. So this is interesting. I'm glad that the girl was able to tire, by the way. Now, a real quick story. I run a podcast here called Off the Cuff Drunks. And about a year ago, one of my guests came over, and she had done things what you did, Duryea. She hit a curb. She flattened her tire. She was in the parking lot next to my house. And we had 15 millennials that were outside trying to change the tire, and they couldn't do it. And the old man had to come in and show them how to do it. And I thought, I was drinking Jack Daniels too. And I thought, okay, boy, I've really failed you. Even figure out how to get the jack underneath of the vehicle.
But it's
so
sometimes
that's how bad it was. And they had trouble. Well, it is, but they couldn't even. All right. You know what I did is I went into my house. I have a floor jack. I carried it out into the parking lot. I jacked it up 30 seconds and I said, okay, now do it. It took 15 on that tire, by the way. Anyway, I failed you all. I'm sorry.
I don't think it's that, because I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of things that we can unpack into just this topic, but I think it is a generational thing, because you're right. Like, things were more hands-on before. Like, just making a phone call used to take goddamn five minutes. You know what I'm saying? So I get there's a difference, but I feel like my personal opinion about the situation was those dudes were out of line, because you should never impose your beliefs on another person, especially if they're a stranger. He wasn't hurting that girl. So I think that's the only time really you need, and that to me is like, I feel like a man is always going to step in if he sees a man hurting another woman. I don't care how much like equal rights we get. I think men are just always going to act that way. And that's just my personal opinion. Like, but having said that, I have a question. I just forgot the question I was about to ask. Like, it came in and then left. Okay. Does anyone have any more to say about this? Okay, great. Next current event. I have a list. Okay. Actually, let's stay on the same energy. So Mike Tyson recently had a podcast, and during his podcast, he sat down with Boosie Badass, and which I knew nothing about this. Boosie Badass has made a lot of really negative comments about not only transgender women, but specifically transgender children, and he said a lot of negative things about parents who embrace their transgender child's transition. And now, whether you feel that way or anything, I wish I could show clips of other people's stuff without worrying about copyright infringement, but I can't, so I won't. Basically, he sat down with Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson brought him up in an interview. When I tell you Mike Tyson was so G, he said, so why do you keep making these comments about these transgender people? Then Boosie kind of like started talking, but he was stammering. He says, because it makes me feel like you must be a homosexual. And then Boosie just was like, he was like, no, I'm not saying. And he was like, no, it's not that. He was like, I'm not saying you're gay, but I mean, otherwise, like, he was like, I feel like you must be a homosexual that is repressing your own, and you feel like hurting other homosexuals is the only way you can deal with it. And then the dude had no response because he's like, because otherwise I don't see why you're so mean to these people. And I just think it's funny how vocal people can be when they're not staring at a dinosaur. You know what I'm saying? Because all the stuff he was saying on the internet, he wouldn't say in the presence of Mike Tyson. When Mike Tyson, because if you do that in somebody's face, where I'm from and where I've been, a lot of times you say that to a man, he's gonna fight you. He's gonna fight you, whether that's toxic masculinity or not. So I want to know how we feel about this, about Mike Tyson reading Boosie into his face and him not having a response.
Okay, also can
Go
I hit
ahead,
that? So first of all, the way that the one thing I don't agree with is Mike Tyson saying, "Oh, you must be a homosexual." That's one thing never say to anyone, only because it's still considered offensive. Like if you say to a straight man, "You must be homosexual," that's like saying, "Oh, you must be gay," kind of thing, and they will take that offensively. So I would never come off like that. But he does have a point of why are you attacking these people? Like why are you attacking these parents catering to their child, making sure their child is comfortable, making sure their child know it's okay to be who you are. Because again, like I think we talked before, he's the same one who paid a stripper or sex worker or a prostitute, I don't know what you want to call them. He paid an adult woman to rape, we can call it what it is, to rape his child. His child who was 16 or 17, I think it was. Yeah, 16. So he paid this stripper or this woman to have sex with a child who was 16. So now you pay this woman to rape your child. So who are you to question these parents who are supporting their child and who they want to be? And so that's where I'm at on that. Who are you to question? Who are you to question? These parents who support their children? That's where I'm at.
Okay. Keisha.
I'm sorry, didn't know you can hear me.
It's okay.
I thought that whole conversation had so many layers to it, and it was definitely interesting for Mike, who's had his own issues, his own problematic issues, to be forthright and talking about that, and also getting Bootsy to like explain himself and also sort of talk through his sort of ingrained issues that he has with transgendered or gay people. And I don't think he was expecting to be called out about that on that show. And but not there and not so like blatantly to ask about it. And I think he did mention that he did talk to Dwayne Wade. Am I incorrect in that? Didn't he say he spoke to them?
I didn't see that part of the interview, so I don't know. But
I think he sort of mentioned it. Maybe I'm incorrect, but he was saying that he felt that it was too young and all that. Now that has been open up for debate, whether a child is too young to publicly have them being transgendered put out there. Because it was, I think he made a comment about that, and if I'm not mistaken, like Mario Lopez even made a comment about it, and he, people went after him, and that's part of like a whole separate conversation. Like, should a child's privacy be respected in that regard because of how crazy the internet is, and so on and so forth. But I don't think he said that in a very nuanced way. It was very disrespectful how he came across, and very inappropriate and very ignorant. And you have a lot of people who don't understand the intricacies of being.
They don't understand the intricacies until they're faced with it. I think that's the interesting thing about it. Like, you don't understand it till you have to deal with it, right? And then when you deal with it, you have to think about like how your words affect and land on people, because his whole response was, well, that's a child, which is why Lance said what he said, is like, you don't care about that because what you did to your own kid. So I think that's interesting as well. Emily.
It was like, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I guess I kind of feel like I would want to see the whole conversation.
The video.
Yeah, because I'm curious as to when he was saying like, oh, I think you must be a homosexual.
That's
let me
put some context behind it, because I read it first, because how sometimes the article will say the dialogue and then you'll see a video. So I read it first and I watched the video. When I read it, I kind of thought the same thing, but I've heard that a lot. Like, the only reason you would be, because I actually think that's the case a lot of times. People who are outwardly homophobic are I'm not gonna say all the time, but I've encountered that they may have had their own homosexual leanings. So I don't think that's necessarily out of the ordinary for him to say. And the energy behind which he said it was not at all insulting. He said it very much like why are you doing this? Like, because that's the only thing that makes sense to me. And he's like, and if he was basically saying like, if you are, I mean, you are, like, nobody cares. And it was he wasn't really trying to, it didn't come off as insulting when I saw the video, but everybody might take it differently.
I don't know. I guess I was just, kind of like wondering if he was using that as an insult, or if he was genuinely trying to kind of like open up a dialogue about something. But it seems, I'm all for like calling out people when they're, being transphobic or like whatever kind of like prejudice. But I just feel like people's like sex lives and stuff like is very personal and very private, and you don't really like need somebody outing you. I don't know. I feel like there's
so you saw it as he could have, if he was actually homosexual. I didn't think of it that way.
I guess that is what I took away from it. I guess I am assuming that he is now, which I shouldn't. But I
don't think he is. I don't think he is. I think he just suffers from fucking toxic masculinity, like the rest of the fucking. Like, look, in the black community, when you're a man, you have to be a fucking man all the motherfucking time, nigga, all the goddamn time. And if you're not that, you're like ostracized, or you're picked on, or fucking all. And so it's just crazy. So I think. And it makes you like, that's what it's taught. Like, if you're a black man and you encounter another black man who's not that, he's gay, or he's weird, or he's wants to be white, or whatever. So go ahead, Dan.
Can I comment on what Emily said real quick?
If it's real quick.
Yeah. Okay. Real quick.
Go ahead.
Real quick. So just like Emily said, it's a real private situation. So the discussion came with me on people. We was talking about, well, now that his or her, however he identifies, is that now they're backing him on social media. What if he or she decides to live a different life? And now it's like, is he pressured to keep living that kind of life he is because his parents are backing him? So that's why I definitely agree with Emily. It's very personal. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Maybe it shouldn't be, broadcasted like that, but at the same time, it still needs that. It still needs to be normalized that people live their lives the way they want to, kind of thing. So that was it. I'm gonna mute myself real quick.
Okay, so, Danny.
Kind of moving close to the subject, but there, when we talk about like children and transgender, right? There's this, like, if you're not transgender, you don't know people that are transgender, you're not following exactly like all the nuances of that conversation. Your idea of what that means can be really skewed, because there are people I talk to and they're like, you can't let your kid get a sex change at 8 years old. You know, like, that's horrible. You can't make your children, you can't make your children have a sex change when they're 12. And it's like, nobody's doing that. Nobody's trying to do that. Nobody's advocating for that. It's not a thing. It's a thing that people on the far extremes are trying to say. It's like, third trimester abortions are like this huge big deal, but really they account for like a negligible amount of abortions, and they're almost always like life of the mother and like
medical necessity.
And these are like families that already like they're planning to have a kid, and now like their lives are devastated, and now there's a guy driving his truck with like the images, fuck them. So yeah, like that's the thing. It's nobody, and when I say nobody, it's the same never always kind of thing, because sure, somebody out there is, but nobody's forcing their kids to change gender. Nobody is looking at their little boy or little girl and going, you know what? I just rather you were the opposite gender. So we're going to just do that now. Nobody does that. Kids start to express. And for a little while, they do their thing, and maybe they go back. Maybe it's just a phase. Sometimes that happens. But if they don't, the parents they're clued into that. They see what's happening, and then they go to medical experts and doctors, psychiatrists. So it's not like, it's not even my kid gets up one day and says, you know what, I think I'm not really a boy, I'm a girl. And then like the next day they've just given hormone treatments and they've changed their whole lives. That's not how it happens. So this is over a long period of time. There's lots of medical officials and medical experts involved that make sure that this is really what's going on. And then maybe hormone treatments start, I think, earliest is 16. I may be wrong on that, but that's hormone treatments. And then sex change operation, you have to be an adult. So,
and you have to have, I think, you have to have therapy.
Yeah,
you have
there's
to have
therapy.
A bunch of
all kinds of
approvals
stuff goes with it.
Just like you have to be a certain age to own a gun, to drink liquor. It's not like, And anyway, I agree with everything you just said. Does anyone else want to say? Because I heard some hands.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I got some. So a couple things on. I don't know who this Boosie guy is. I never saw this interview or anything, but just some thoughts on, that idea of, outing the children as these, transgenders, or however, just like Mike Tyson outed him as homosexual. Possibly. Theoretically,
right?
That whole concept. I mean, that's the thing that disturbs me the most about that is just the sexualization of children, and just like the Netflix cuties thing. Like Netflix is being sued for putting cuties on their platform, because it's like child pornography. And
I see you, Keisha. Let him talk.
These I haven't watched it, so I can't really say, but that's what I understand.
Right.
And so in that vein, like we've got these cross-dressing or drag queen kids or whatever going on to like the daytime TV shows and be like, check out this footage of my 8-year-old boy on stage shaking his ass for a bunch of adult grown-ass gay men, and they're throwing dollar bills at him. Like, that's that same concept, like that's really disgusting.
This is why I walked back when I said never. This is why I walked that back, because that doesn't happen ever, except like there's some crazy people out there that do stupid shit like that, but that is not the movement.
But then it gets glorified.
I actually want to respond to
where did that happen?
I just want to respond to. I want to respond to a lot of what you just said. I want to respond first with the over-sexualization of children. There's a difference between gender identity and sexuality, and that's where people who aren't educated about transgender people and being transgender forget, or it gets cloudy, because the idea is, since we're talking about gender and sometimes genitalia, which is why a lot of transgender people don't want you to ask them about whether they've had the surgery, because then you're focusing more on their parts than the person. And gender identity is how a person identifies, how they feel, not how they're physically made up. So it's not about the actual sex. Because like you look at someone like is it Caitlyn Jenner? It's Caitlyn. Caitlyn Jenner was attracted to women as a man, and is still, I'm sorry, before she had her gender reassignment, she's still attracted to women. So it's not like her sexuality changed. She just changed herself physically. So that's the one thing. The second thing, I want to talk about the cuties thing. People are tripping about the cuties because they got too much damn time on their hands. Because let's be honest, Dance Moms, John Benet Ramsey, and the whole little kids and that thing, and Bring It, which is on Lifetime now, these family networks. These are all things that showed, like, if you watch the first few episodes of Dance Moms, the girls are wearing like cutoff tops and dancing. They're not necessarily shaking their ass, but it would be the same thing as what's going on with the cuties. So to me, I feel like people just wanted to have something to bitch about, and that's what it was. Because it's far from it's far from porn, period. I haven't seen cuties either, though, so I can't really say. But it's but it's also a lot of, when you look at the things that you're saying, like Danny said, these things aren't really happening. What happens is, I don't think it's that people glorify it. It's that you find one incident of it, and then you blast it everywhere saying, see, this is happening everywhere. But really, it was just that time. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to say that real quick. All right. Go ahead, Lance.
All right. So I honestly, I kind of want to hear what Brian, I'm not going to say your last name because I will not pronounce it right. I kind of want him to chime in just to see how he feels about this, since he's of an older generation, if you don't mind. If not, it's cool.
I feel the same.
Well, that's fine. You got to remember, this is Mike Tyson. And I've got a lot of respect for him because, God, 30 years ago, this is one of the guys that, listen, this was a black man who was the highest paid entertainer in the United States of America back in 1987, 88, 89. But you got to remember who we're talking about. But here's what I will say, just to sum everything up that you all talk about. There is nothing wrong with being gay, transgender, lesbian, or anything like that. Nothing wrong with that. And anybody who even hints that there might be something wrong with it, in this day and age, is wrong. It really is. I don't know why any of that was brought up, even by him. So I am on that. I didn't do. I pay for that, man. I pay attention to a lot of those old celebrities have anything else to do in their life except, now that they're old, they've got to do something to try to make themselves visible and relevant. So there's where I am.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you. Appreciate that.
Did everyone get a go round on that topic? Did you say something, Dondre?
I was just gonna add.
Go ahead.
Ryan's definitely correct about that. I mean, like Lance said, it was phrasing. Because it may still come off like a question, but it was shot off as like a derogatory passive aggressiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely would offend a lot of people, and like if they received that or heard it. So,
and it's weird that when I heard it say it, it didn't offend me at all until I was saying it out of my mouth and then saw everybody's face, and I said, "Oh, I guess that is a little offensive." But to me, I guess that's maybe something that I built in my head, which is why homophobic people do the shit that they do. Mm-hmm. I guess I've always just justified it that way in my head. Like, because I know so many straight dudes who are like, they're straight to me because they don't care. They don't think about that. They're not those straight dudes who feel like every gay dude's going to hit on, you know what I'm saying? But the guy, I just have made that connection in my head. So I'm sorry. All righty. Any other comments before we move to our next topic?
I was just on that, on Mike Tyson's actual approach. There's like, I hate to say it this way because I just kind of hate the term, but there's like stages of wokeness, right? You know, so you got like I don't think there's a problem anywhere. You got like, I don't understand why they got to shove it in my face, and it creeps over. And then you're like, okay, they have a right to do their thing, but whatever, and then you start to get to advocating, right? But you still don't maybe have the knowledge of everything that's into it. I mean, there was when one of my best friends came out as transgender, and I kind of like got into the sort of transgender community and trying to be an ally, but like putting my foot in my fucking mouth again and again and again, and just getting dragged, in these chat rooms and stuff. And at the time, being like, but I'm trying to be your friend, and it took, I had to step back, took some time, reassess, and figure out what was going on, and I'm better now. But and then some people have that white knight stage of wokeness, right? There's a lot of people that have that where they're woke, but it's about how woke they are and not about actually doing, actual allyship. And hopefully a lot of people skip that. And then finally you get to where you're just an ally and you're just doing the thing. So I think that's something to kind of consider in Mike Tyson's case. Like, I don't see Mike Tyson, as old as he is, as like probably just immersed in a world of toxic masculinity and United States entertainment, industry, as necessarily having had all those tools. And so for me, if he's just sitting there going like, hey, asshole, don't be fucking homophobic and don't be fucking, hating on people because they're transgender. If he missteps and is a little bit offensive about how he presents that, you know what? I'm going to take the victory that he's moving in this direction.
And just to add on, lastly, Boosie will probably listen to him more than anyone else because he relates to him. They probably have a similar background, or both Black men in the entertainment industry, and it's coming from someone who he respects better. So
okay,
it's a good point. Maybe he could have made that in a private conversation instead of calling him out during
because I mean that's probably why.
Is it weird that I don't think so? I think he had to get called out because I think it wouldn't
have changed until
it makes good
had to be
entertainment.
on record. I feel like it had to be on record. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole conversation was an in-depth interview with him. So I think he was asking him about recent things that he's been dealing with, because I think that happened.
But this is the thing about it, though.
Or last year.
Accountability.
So,
this is the thing about it. Have you ever heard?
They were talking about some heavy stuff in that whole
conversation.
conversation.
Have you heard that phrase? The phrase is it's like on a meme that I keep seeing, like, your apology needs to be just as loud as that disrespect was.
Yeah.
So basically, since you got online and went out in the world and tragged this family and these kids, you owe them a public apology, really. So let's do this. I think it had to be that way, personally. But
I agree.
I got one more question.
Okay.
I got one question.
Go ahead.
Who is Boosie?
He's a rapper.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. There's Lil Boosie, right? And then there's Boosie Bad, right?
Boosie Bad A.
AZZ. All right.
I don't know.
All right, the next one. Let's keep on this train. I like talking about celebrities because I'm tired of talking about them other two motherfuckers that's always on TV. Lisa Ray McCoy.
Oh, I'm so ready for this one.
Now this is what I'm going to say. Lisa, and I actually am all for it, but Lisa Ray McCoy recently started an OnlyFans. Now, people on OnlyFans aren't only doing OnlyFans type shit, There's a lot of people who just get on and they just talk to their fans, So,
I recently learned this.
They do. And it's like, hey, I'm your fan, but this is exclusive for my fans. You pay this little money monthly, and I'll just get on here and I'll talk directly to y'all. So unless you don't know what's going to be on her channel until you've paid and gone to see it. Yeah. So I want to talk about that specifically because Dondre wanted to talk about it. So I'm actually, this is literally why I put this on the list of current events. So Dondre.
Okay, shoot. So like you said, yes, there are many people on OnlyFans. I know a lot of sex workers, and I fucking live for it. So I mean, if that's what she's up there doing, because I still don't know.
I don't think she is.
Right. I'm like, she ain't busting it wide open. But I ain't gonna knock it because I mean, shoot, there's still Tyga. Very relevant sometimes. Hip hop artist who's on there busting down girls all the time. Yes, Tyga's on there. His schlong is on the internet. You'll find it later. Anyway.
You okay there?
But I'm like, okay, whoa, Lance, chill. I'm like, you don't know what's going on. I mean, if you want to get more bread on top of your record deal, we don't even know if he has a 360 deal. So I understand if you want to make some more money. Do what you want to do with your body. And I mean, if your fan base also wants to pay to see you do whatever you're doing on there, it's justified. Do what the hell you want. It's your life.
Okay. Go ahead, Lance.
So I'm gonna tell real quick. So I have OnlyFans. Well, I will not drop the link, but I got a good 17K followers on Twitter. And OnlyFans is a nice little side hustle. It is. It's a nice little side hustle. And I still have my professional, my professional job kind of thing. So I don't blame anyone who's getting bread off because people will pay for this. People will pay to see you. Whatever it is you do, if you have that fan base, they'll pay to see you.
Right.
And the entertainment industry, there are rappers who have ghostwriters, but they'll pay to see that person.
Because it's them. Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Like a recent one was like King Kong.
Bread from that hustle, people willing to pay to see you because they love who you are. Why knock it kind of thing. So that's my thing. So like I said, I got my little side hustle on there. I ain't making millions, but I'll tell you, I get my bread from there, and I still have my professional career. So it is what it is.
Okay. Emily.
Well, I don't know who this person is that we're talking about.
She's a celebrity.
But I don't have a problem with somebody having an OnlyFans.
Right.
I think it's one of those things that's just kind of like who gets to decide who's allowed to do it and who's not, and like what people can do on the internet. I don't know.
Right. I mean, there's always going to be somebody out there to say their opinion and be judgy and all that stuff like that. I haven't seen that yet. I think that's because,
who are those people?
Well, they exist. They exist. They out there. They be.
I kind of feel like I have to be because everybody else is in agreement.
Well, no, I mean, that's usually what somebody has to play that role. But for me, what I like about it is that people are getting to a point where they're not feeling like they have to be so judgmental about everything, and I actually blame that on social media. I think that's actually I think it started with being this like overly judgmental thing. And because it turned into that, people were like, fuck bullies and let's be positive. And now it's turned into like, let's just accept everybody. And I think this is an example of it because normally for someone who is an actor, you have to hide any part of it. I remember when Tommy Lee and Pam Anderson had that tape, that pretty much like shut down their careers. And really, it wasn't.
But now we're in a phase of glorifying celebrity. So
you think we weren't then?
They were, but not in the way that it is now with social media.
Yeah.
And I feel like this year in 2020, you have a lot of things with celebrities that are coming to the light where people are not as are starting to get less enamored with them because it's the overexposure of celebrity. But but back then when that was happening, that had never happened before.
Right.
And then you had the era of
Kim,
where it was coming out. Multiple people were coming out with sex tapes after hers came out.
Kim, got you. Because my head didn't go to that. It went to a different Kim.
Yeah, I gotta.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Be quiet on something.
Right, I just couldn't figure out which Kim. I know you're talking
Kim.
about.
So you saw at a time like in the early 2000s. I can't remember what year that damn tape came out, but in the early 2000s, where you had multiple celebrities that came out, not came out, their sex tapes were leaked, and because they saw how it didn't really affect her career, and she was able to capitalize off that. And so they figured, okay, that's the way to go. So with this but going back to OnlyFans, you had a market that was sort of reserved for sex workers who were able to make a substantial living that has now been overtaken by celebrity.
Now that's the issue that
and I don't care who does it, it's whatever, but you see a lot of sex workers who are coming out and like, now you guys have now something that I get chastised for and I'm made to feel is demonic or evil or wrong or I'm less of a person is now being taken over and celebrated by celebrity, and they've cornered this market, and now that leaves them out of the equation once again.
Damn,
so
I didn't even think about that, Keisha. Okay, how you gonna get deep on this conversation about OnlyFans? All right,
yeah,
Justin, you said you want to say something.
I don't know if you called
No,
my
I
name
said
or
Justin.
not.
He
you
said
said Justin.
Me.
You said you wanted to say something.
I don't think this is Justin.
You said I have to say something. You have to disagree because.
Oh no, I was just saying, like, just like in the concept of philosophical debate, I felt like I needed to take a position that was
got you.
against it. But I mean, I don't have much against it. You know, I'm very do what thou wilt. So
yeah. And as long as it's monitored and it's not anyone underage doing any of that, absolutely.
Right.
If you're over 18, that's
culturally, is it a great idea to inundate the culture with like simp culture or the hypersexualization of all that? But that's a different question, and I think it's all voluntary.
Hypersexualization, that's a different question too.
Andre?
So Lance earlier said how these personalities have a lot of people who pretty much either look up to them, adore them, infatuate them, etc., etc. So it's funny because I actually remembered earlier on Twitter something came up, and this is literally like the staple for it. People are also allowed to tip people while they're on OnlyFans. So this is literally somebody not acknowledging any of these messages, and every time he's tipping him $500, he is getting paid to ignore this man. I mean, if the man's willing to pay that, keep doing your damn thing. Like that is a lot of bank. We need to live. And if that's their choice to make that bread, shit, that's a lot of bread on the table.
I mean, there something might be able to be said about that. Could kind of be looking at, you don't know what that person's problems are. You could be taking advantage of a vulnerable adult with a lot of expendable cash.
So he chose to subscribe and he chose to pay for it. He chose to put in his credit card information. You can't not say that.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is this: if you
a lot of choice,
if you watch pornography, you cannot.
You could just get it for free on Pornhub, though. Like
anyone who's getting paid for it. That's my thing. If you watch porn, whether Pornhub for free, whatever, you cannot judge anyone who's doing porn or anything for OnlyFans.
Do you really think there's people out here? You have to realize people in these streets be doing stuff.
They be saying things, but they be doing it behind the door.
Absolutely.
And then go to church on Sunday.
Right. Otherwise, Pornhub wouldn't exist.
Go to the club on Saturday and go to church on Sunday.
Do we need to talk about a pastor? Like,
my thing is that porn has been around for way before even
centuries
were around. Porn had been around before
millennia.
Like it's in the fucking
they don't call
in the pyramids.
When people say the oldest profession, they don't mean a car mechanic,
I must say with porn that even though I don't know if this was a topic that but it's around the OnlyFans area.
Porn. Hello, my name is
porn and the easy accessibility to it. The easy accessibility to porn compared to when we were growing up to now, I feel like the conversation needs to go into kids having easy access to this stuff. Compared to when we were growing up, you may see somebody with a magazine
of that recently.
or a VHS tape off in the closet somewhere.
When you found a stash, the first time you found somebody's stash.
But now
I found Daddy's Playboy.
What is this?
Exactly. But now you have kids who have easy access to this stuff and are getting, not even just like young kids, teenagers who are getting their cues from pornography and getting their ideas of what a woman's body is supposed to look like, what a man's body is supposed to look like from pornography, and how they treat women from pornography. Like the list goes on. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I just want to say.
As far as pornography, there's many categories of pornography. You can go from skinny fit to to be the big voluptuous. So, but my thing is this:
it's pretty much 31 flavors.
So when I was a
What you
kid,
need?
I was clicking channel 36 for Playboy and going between 36 and 37 to get that one blurry vision of porn.
Right.
You know what
Have
I
you
mean?
ever been on HBO late night?
Wait, hold on, stop.
Taxi
You're telling your age right now.
So my
Taxi Cab Confessions.
Yes.
That comes.
Hey, we all just told.
That was-
Listen, this entire panel is clearly older than 30.
Yes.
Period.
Not I.
Period. That's the youngest we can be.
Hey,
is
you
30.
say clearly, but I still get carded.
No. Oh, you didn't say anything yet, so I guess.
I am a child.
If you have ever turned that channel to that blurry channel and watched it to see that you get a good image, oh man.
But I definitely get what y'all saying. I was there.
Man.
Back in the day,
That's
the
some real
cousins
shit.
looking at HBO, knowing you had no business looking at
I
HBO.
was that. Yo, if my mom went upstairs to go do something, I was
Anything.
like, I'm here watching cartoons late night, and then HBO come on, and I knew what would happen the second it hit. What, like 11 o'clock? I was like,
Turn on that Skinemax.
But the thing is,
doing his
it
thing.
was, but the thing is, it was about curiosity for us because our parents were of a generation that did not talk about sexuality, did not talk about how to treat a woman, how to treat a man, protective sex. They didn't venture deep into those conversations. So because of that, we were like, shit, what's going on? And we're gonna listen to our friends. We're gonna find HBO, whatever they have going on to look at. But
I don't know about y'all, but I was chased. Okay.
Hey,
you were what?
Finding Daddy's Playboy, finding that channel was the most exciting thing you could get. It's true. Like the most you would talk about that with your parents was the birds and the bees.
Okay, so hold on. Wait. Hold on, because
I'm partially internet age.
Hold on, we going. Hold on. So, Danny, did you want to say something on topic before I leave this?
Yeah. So, just kind of, just going off of what you're saying, about how it's like prolific, and now like people are taking their cues from that. And on the surface, that seems very problematic, right? Because you have people that they're looking at how sex works. It's like pornography is their sex education, right? So my problem with that take on pornography is that I think pornography is that way because of how we were not brought up, or how like sex is taboo, and how and all the things that go into our culture with toxic masculinity, the gender roles, all of those things. And so those things were in society, and then that goes into porn, and then that's what people see, and it reinforces. So it reinforces, but honestly, I think that, if we were able to actually progress in society to a point where sex wasn't taboo, where it wasn't something that we hid or we were embarrassed about to tell our kids or whatever, that it wouldn't be, that porn would change, and that we wouldn't see those things that way. In fact, probably porn would change, and people wouldn't be as into watching porn because,
Well, I think going off of your point, I would definitely have to say that our generation now, I don't have kids, but I'm sure whoever has kids here, that you're more open to having a conversation with them about sex. Because it's sort of
children.
I got a grown kid.
You have a kid?
He in the army, man. He already been to war.
How old are you, Lord Jesus?
I'm like 72, man.
I'm
don't
Asian.
Look it. I'm Asian, right? Like, so I'm Asian. I look younger.
Wait, he's dead ass?
Yeah, you got.
No, I'm
really? Get the fuck out.
But with that, I just noticed with my friends and family who do have kids that the conversation has to be had. Sort of like, I need to have this conversation before their friends get to them, before the internet gets to them. Like it needs to happen.
I think at like 13, I had my conversation with my mom.
Go ahead, Dre.
So, sorry, what's your name again? Because I'm addressing you.
Me?
You were just speaking. No, she was just speaking.
Keisha.
Keisha.
Lovely to hear you.
Key.
Okay, welcome, Key.
Not the government.
So yes, just putting people out here. There he is.
Look, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
So like I was saying about me being younger than all of you, that internet age makes it a lot more compromising. Because I mean, even growing up, if I was just to go on maybe like one of those free flash game sites, on the side of my screen, you like naked women?
Yep.
It was just boom there. And like, I mean, of course I saw it. Of course I almost wanted to click it. But I mean, kids nowadays, they have phones in their hands from like kindergarten sometimes. So then it's like there's all this access to all that content online. And I mean, parents want to shield them from it, I tend to guess. But can they when they have the access?
So I'm going to tell you all a story. So my first encounter, not only with it wasn't my first encounter with porn. My first encounter with the internet, I will never forget it. This was the first time ever I was getting on the internet, ever, period. We had to sign permission slips and all this stuff. I was in 4th grade, and it was a big deal. We were going to the computer lab, and we're going to get on the internet, right? So we get to the internet. We're doing research on the White House, right? No one's face responded, so y'all don't know where this story's going. Okay, so we're doing research. So we had to do all this preparation. We had to learn all the steps to log on. You have to take your mouse and do this, click here, go. This is an address bar, and you'll type in www.whitehouse.gov. And okay, I'm like, okay, cool. Yet for some reason, we went through all this, and yet still, when it came my time, I wrote www.whitehouse.com. I didn't put .gov. And pow. I was in 4th grade. This was before they knew to put up the blocks and stuff. I just saw some big old biddies, and she was wrapped in a towel. I mean, not a towel, the flag. I was like, oh my God. So that was how it was for me. So it's not that ours was less accessible. It's just y'all have phones. That's what makes it. Like the internet was easy. Internet has always been for that. Let's be clear. But now it's like handheld. So it's just way more accessible. But either way, we have
controlled. I just feel like a lot of people don't know how to.
Yeah.
In network admin, you could actually control a server and lock out certain sites. You could even do that with somebody's phone, but it has to be dictated through, I guess, the internet provider since they're using data.
And hide your kids' phone. Shit, monitor your kids' phone. Track them bitches. Like, come on.
Parental control.
So we're gonna roll.
They are in the phone.
Listen, I do it with my nephew, and I'm thousands of miles away, and I know what he's downloading, what he's looking. I know all of that. Yes.
Okay, so guys, we're moving. We're done with current events for today. That was fun. I'm so surprised this is the first time we talked about porn on this show.
Oh my God.
I feel like it being my show, this should have happened like the first episode, but I guess not. Okay, so we're going to move into our main topic, but before we do that, let's pause for a small commercial break.
Hey everybody, my name's Chris.
I'm Duryea.
I'm Ricky Z.
Justin.
And Julian.
Have you heard about Anchor.fm? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. First off, it's free.
Oh, I love free, especially when we're talking creation tools that allow you to record and edit right from your phone and computer.
And Anchor will actually distribute your podcast for you. So as soon as you're finished recording, you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other platforms.
And you can make money off of your podcast with no minimum listenership.
It's basically a one-stop shop for everything you need. So head on over to anchor.fm and download the mobile app now. And make sure you come back and geek out with us. All righty. We got two missing folks all of a sudden. So those commercials were from, the first was for Geeking Out, which is our sister podcast. We are every other Monday. We talk about geek culture. The next episode of Geeking Out is going to be into the Buffyverse. We're going to dive into Buffy. Now, you know, we can literally talk about Buffy probably forever. There's so much to dig at. That's the best show of that genre. To me, there has not been a show to beat it yet. Fight me. I have a mute button. I have
commercials. I'm so proud of you.
Oh yeah, I gotta be a little bit professional. And the other, and that's every other Monday at 8 on Twitch. You can find us on Twitch at Daygamer, DAYGAYMER. And the other commercial was from the Springer Opera House, which is the State Theater of Georgia. They recently just opened outdoors. They did an outdoor version of Evil Dead the Musical. I believe it sold out. I know they only had like 60 open tickets the last time, like the weekend before the last weekend. So I'm sure they've sold out those last two shows. And they are doing the Winter Wonderettes. But next they're doing a show called Deep Blue Sea, which is for theater for the very young. So it's also going to, I think it's also going to be outside. I think it's going to be in the Dot McClure Theater. But go check it out. It's going to be awesome. And that's that. Now,
is that the one where the shark eats Samuel L. Jackson for little kids?
No, that was actually, yes, Deep Blue Sea is that movie, but this is different. So this is for this. The way they did this show was they basically build the show. They use all child actors, like from 18 to like I think 9, and they come up with a concept. They create the show themselves, and then they rehearse it. And they do all this in 2 weeks. They write it, rehearse it, and stage it in less than 2 weeks. And so it's really dope. And the whole purpose of the Springer's educational side is basically they're teaching kids life skills through stage skills. Basically, you don't have to be an actor just to grow from this. You can learn teamwork, responsibility, discipline, all that fun stuff. Okay, so let's start talking about this affirmative action topic. All right, so I was online. I be online all the time, and I really was just try to start conversation to find panelists, really. That's why I joined this one group, and I joined this group to find panelists. In fact, I had some really, really interesting conversations there. And affirmative action kept being brought up as I'm gonna be flat out honest with y'all. It kept being brought up as evidence that being Black is a privilege.
Hey, you should feel privileged to be treated equally as the rest of humanity. That's a privilege.
I mean, if that was the case, but so basically, because I'll talk, and it always comes up as a response to like white privilege, and I think my personal ideology around white privilege is why people are so like resistant, because they feel like to admit that there's white privilege means that they personally have done something wrong or that kind of thing, and that's no one's saying that, but it just exists. There is white privilege, and so the guy. He's like, he didn't come up to me. He was online. He's like, yeah, but then he started listing affirmative action, HBCUs, BET, shit like that, as being like Black privileges. And I was like, no. So I was like, I'm going to make this topic a topic for Talk It Out. And here we are. So does anyone have anything they want to say?
I have a whole lot. We got half an hour, right?
we have wow. About. Go ahead. Daniel
okay, I'll kick it off. I'll kick it off right here. Okay, so check it out. Affirmative action is one of those things where it shouldn't be necessary. We should not have affirmative action, right? We should not have affirmative action. But the things that are happening in our society have made it so that affirmative action is necessary, right?
Correct.
And I think that a lot of the sort of backlash to it can I mean, there's racism, right? There's people who just they're not getting the privilege they have been getting and that they're entitled to, and now they're mad, and so now we have to like but also like how it's been applied, right? So I'm looking at certain studies. When you look at like the acceptance rates, like to me, and this I might get dragged a little bit for saying this, but to me, it's like if you can sort of get to a point where the employment rates and the acceptance rates and everything are somewhere close to the actual makeup of the population in terms of various races and stuff, I think you've kind of hit your target point, right? So if there's 15% Black people and about 15% of Harvard is Black, I feel like we've kind of reached maybe close to an equilibrium. But what happens is people see that there's a higher and I mean, if that was like across the board, so I'm not saying like, oh, it's fixed at Harvard, so we're done, right? I mean, across the board. So like, but what we see things like in Harvard that there's a higher acceptance rate from Black candidates than there are necessarily like white people, and that raises eyebrows. And so it's a question of, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm saying it's just a question of how is it being implemented, and is it being implemented in a way that's actually pushing towards solving the problem, right? So that's my start.
I think that makes a lot of sense to start there, because I think that a lot of people, and I don't want to speak for the people who were in this group area that you were in,
right?
But a lot of people don't really actually know what affirmative action is, or don't know how it's practiced today, because most of like what people think of it as a quota system, but that was outlawed in the 70s.
Okay.
So it hasn't been that for a really long time. And I mean, most of what's happened with affirmative action, as far as in the courts and stuff go, have been more with universities than with like businesses. And they the Supreme Court basically was like, it's not the job of like the government to try to fix the past. And so I think that it's just like important to keep in mind that this quota system is not really happening. All that universities really can do is like, once it gets to the point where they're like looking at real individual people, then they can be like, oh, this person's Latinx and they were in the Latinx club at their school or whatever. They get points for that. But it can't be like, oh, because they're Latinx, they get like pushed to the front of the line, or there's like
in addition to their merit, their academic history. It's not like they're just letting anyone all of them.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like with all the other factors, and even people who like, even if you are Black, that doesn't even necessarily mean that that'll get you points, because like, did you do any Black stuff when you were in high school? You know, like were you an activist, or were you in like groups at your or like organizations at your school, you know, whatever. Like I was saying, like the woman who was in Latinx club, the theoretical person. So I guess I just feel like I just want to get that out there right off at the beginning, that I don't think that it's happening the way people think it's happening, or as much as people think it's happening. I actually personally feel like we should be doing more than what we're currently doing.
We should be doing more affirmative action stuff.
Yeah.
So I have a question, because I've heard, I see you, Keisha, and I'm going to ask the question, and if you want to answer it, that's fine. I heard, and I'm not really great about this, but I heard that like affirmative action actually can be, it can backfire and cause only a certain amount of people to be hired that fit that quota.
I think that's a myth, but
okay.
And going off of I forgot what your name
Emily.
Emily. Going off of what Emily said, that, and because I did some digging, I did additional research, because I think I had a pretty good grasp of what affirmative action was. So but I've also always known this from when I did my initial research a long time ago, is that affirmative action more than anything has benefited white women more than any other minority group. Not Black people, not Black women, not Black men, it has benefited white women more than any other minority group in this country. And in looking at the court cases that I was like browsing on Wikipedia, and you come across, as well as additional research that that is cited on Wikipedia, got to dig a little deeper. So in looking at that research, you saw at a point, I think after Emily mentioned the quote, the actual like point system that came in there, they added gender into the equation, which then increased white women's ability to benefit from it the most.
Right.
And also a lot of the court cases in that certain time period were white men who took these affirmative action court cases to court. The white women tended to be the plaintiffs in those court cases.
Okay.
So then you also, and now I was reading on this one particular article, I'm gonna put it in the chat. They see that now there's a shift with white women who have historically benefited the most from affirmative action are now coming out against affirmative action. What? So it sort of is like, well, you got what has benefited you. You've gotten the help. You've gotten your semi-equality, and now that it has helped your group out, it's like fuck everybody else. So
but I have two responses to that. One, yes, because somebody was talking to me about Clarence Thomas the other day and felt like he did that too. He played the game to get his position, and now he's not helping anybody behind him. So I think that's interesting because I never thought about it like that until like it was framed that way. And I also think, but do you think a white woman who gets hired because of affirmative action knows that?
But the thing is, because we've been programmed to believe affirmative action is only for people of color.
You're right. You're right. That's very true.
Well, because when after learning what I've learned in school about what affirmative action is and making my assumptions about it, and then looking at studies where people were like, no, actually white women have benefited from this institution, like especially back in the 70s where a lot of people were going back to work, a lot of white women were going into the workforce. They benefited from this policy more than anything. And then also reading up on affirmative action, it started more so, you could say like the first affirmative action policy from the government was the 40 acres and a mule policy with African Americans that never came to fruition. So if anyone's familiar with 40 acres and a mule, it's this promise that we would get our 40 acres. If you're a descendant of slaves, you get your 40 acres and you'll get your mule. That never happened. And so you move on into later in this country's history, and then you see certain specific policies that have created a sort of huge gap between white people, men and women, and other races in this country. You have the GI Bill, you have, in researching some more, you have the Social Security Act, which at a time was specific to white people. Black people were not able to take part in the Social Security Act at a time. You have the Homestead Act. You had all these different acts these policies that were initiated by the U.S. government that benefited white people solely and specifically excluded Black, Asian, and Native American people.
So I wanna respond to thank you for all that information, Keisha, because she clearly did the homework. Everybody just got real quiet and started listening, and I like it.
I've always heard about the GI Bill, but all the other bills like Social Security Act, I did not know that at all.
Right. But for all of the people who are going to be listening to this and aren't watching it, while she was speaking, you saw like a massive amount of head nodding from the rest of us. I feel like that's the longest time in Talk It Out history where there was nobody trying to interject. So you take that award, Keith. Okay, so the comment from the group says, so as a brown person, the comment from the viewer says, as a brown person, do I benefit more from affirmative action or white privilege? And I think this is an interesting question because I actually had somebody recently ask me we were talking about how Hispanic people, Latinx, is that what we're supposed to say now?
I hear some people pronounce it Latinx. I don't know which is correct.
But yeah, they talk about like, because first of all, colorism is really, really, I hear it's very bad in that community. I'm not part of that community, so I don't know. But
I don't think I've heard
that. But I've heard colorism is a really big issue there. But I've heard a lot of people say that, they don't feel like Latinx people can benefit from white privilege. And I've heard a lot of people say that they absolutely can. Lance?
Can I comment on that? So I think it was Jose Davalin. I'm sorry if I'm saying the last name wrong.
Davila.
So, are you mixed to the point where you look brown, or you mix to the point where you look white. And that's when you'll know if you'll benefit from one of them.
I think either way. I think there's
no. Because if you look white, you can benefit on those.
Like Cameron Diaz.
If you're a dark Hispanic.
No, yes.
Like Cameron Diaz.
Because remember, race is a social construct.
Right.
Right.
Race is and you will get put in your racial category based on how you look.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I love you.
Thank you. Cameron Diaz, for one, looks like a white woman, and she's able to get into those specific roles. You have Martin Sheen, who has a Hispanic last name, but changed it to Martin Sheen for a reason.
Hey.
So he
do you look like Sally, or do you look like Maria?
Appearance.
I think it's possible, though, that a person who was light-skinned and looked white could benefit from white privilege, but still, on paper, as a mixed-race person, get the benefit of affirmative action.
Let me say
double dipping. That's
wait.
not okay.
Hold up. Let me say something
on
really
paper,
quick.
But when you go to that interview,
it's
about
presentation.
See what you are.
One second, guys.
They'll see you. Oh, he's black.
Let me throw it to Brian really quick. Let me throw it to Brian really quick. Because I've been seeing him in the camera nodding a little bit. What do you got to say, Brian?
Hi. It's interesting how this particular generation views affirmative action. You have to remember that look at the history of what we've done at the government level. The first affirmative action law was actually an executive order done by President Kennedy back in, I believe, 1961, where government contract workers or government employers had to look at the target groups that we hear. And then that went into the Johnson administration, the Nixon administration, we've moved forward. Here's what you all need to remember. There's equal opportunity employers, and then there is affirmative action. Remember that affirmative action is a plan that employers or educators do. They are giving prices to that were otherwise, back historically disadvantaged minority groups, and those included people of color, women, and by the way, women who have benefited the most from anything from the 20th century, anything from gender, religion, etc. So that's all back in the history. The question is, do we still need it? All right, if you look up in the United States, there are some states going back to 1996 that have eliminated affirmative action in their hands at the government level, and then in enforcing it to people who are employers. Those include states like Texas, California, Washington, I believe Florida, etc. You can throw all that up. Do we still need it? And here's where I am. We needed it back in 1961, and thank God we had a president who pushed it. We still do need it today to a point. There are pros and cons on both sides. So you got to pay attention when it comes to admissions into colleges and schools. But there's also opens and hiring within agencies. And Daria, you and I have been in the Army, right?
Yep.
You're still there. Yep.
Yeah, I'm here.
We were employed by a very, very large employer in the United States of America, and that is the Armed Services. Equal employment applied to you and me. How we got promoted once we got in sometimes was a different story. And one of the things that I found out when I was an officer in the Army and I was working with this very same thing, we kept very close quantitative data on racial makeups, gender makeups, religious makeups, all the things that were in the target group. When all things being equal, if we were promoting somebody, the target group would get the preference, whether it was a woman or whether it was somebody who was black or somebody who was a certain religion or whatever, they would win. And so that's a conundrum that we've got out here. Probably some of you have seen it already out there in places.
There's
it's like,
sorry, go ahead, continue.
The merit system is something that's very.
Hello.
Well, and I'm gonna end that because I caught your attention and I picked up a few things that you were looking at.
Who, me? Okay, so I think anyway. So there's a comment that I kind of want to address. And I also see that Dondre wants to say something. So the comment is, so it says, okay, discuss Kamala Harris. Is she benefiting off of the black vote? The reason I'm going to bring this up and make it relevant is basically like, is this kind of like affirmative action?
What?
Look at all the confusion. Right.
Okay, what are you talking about? Expand
well,
on that point.
I think
it's clearly not affirmative.
I kind of get what you're saying because I really do feel like he picked her specifically because of her race. I absolutely feel that way.
I mean, but look at it this way: you have a majority, obviously politically, but also you have the Democratic Party where the highest percentage of the turnout in the Democratic Party are black women.
Right. But
Doug Jones in Alabama, that whole situation he won that because of black women. And so look at it this way, you have the Democratic Party, their nominees are always white.
My question is this, as a black woman, Keisha, and I'm going to ask you specifically, as a black woman, anybody in the comments who's a black woman, please respond to this. As a black woman, are you more interested in seeing someone who looks like you in that position or seeing someone you agree with in that position?
It's both.
Yeah. but it's definitely both. Which is
sometimes
more.
You can't have both. So for me, if they put a black person in that position and they are the complete opposite of what I believe in, I don't want them in the damn position.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Let me clarify.
What you're saying?
Let me clarify. Yeah. What I'm saying is, first of all, there's not any politician that anybody agrees with 100%. Period. Yeah. Period. So you're always going to agree, even if you say you hate a certain candidate, there's something I bet that you agree with them about. Yeah. So my point is saying this: is it more important for you to agree with your candidate or you to feel like your candidate represents your demographic? Which is more important to you?
She just said though.
She said both.
Yeah, both.
Well, but I mean, she said like if their views were the opposite of hers, that she wouldn't want them in office. Right?
So then, are you saying that then their
Clarence Thomas,
if their views are more important than their?
If Clarence Thomas was running for president, I would absolutely not vote for him.
I feel like
I'm just using him as an example, in this situation, because all skin folk are not kinfolk.
Okay, but let me rephrase the question then.
Come on.
If you had a candidate who was white, a white woman, and you agreed with her policies way more than you agreed with the black person's policies, but you still agreed with the black person's policies, you just agree with the white woman's policies more, and you had to pick between the two.
It sort of sounds like you're saying that they both have the same policies and one is black and
no.
one is white.
No. It's like
2% more or 50% more.
Let me explain. No. It makes a difference. Like to me, I wouldn't vote for Biden really at all. But I would have voted for Bernie Sanders, and I probably would have leaned toward Elizabeth Warren. My point is but all three of them are acceptable to me. They're acceptable choices.
But here's the thing with, let's use, for example, if they both have the same things that I agree with on somewhat the same level, and one is black and one is white, I'm probably going to go with the black one.
Of course. But
they will have a level, and let me tell you why. Let me expand on why. Because they will have a level of understanding as a black person about how these certain policies will affect people of color.
Absolutely, I get that.
They won't have
I'm
a blind
asking which
spot.
you prioritize.
Black or the political.
Yeah, essentially. Which one is more important?
Political. She said political like 500 times.
She didn't say political. She
did say political.
When did you say political?
That's what
Emily put me up. She said political, right?
Black or political.
Didn't say political.
I just said if they both. Yeah.
She said though, if they don't agree with her, what she agrees with, she's not gonna vote for them. So
I'll advise you.
It's the opposite of your views.
And keeping it real with you, there was like when Obama and Hillary were up, I was gonna be a Hillary voter.
Thank you.
Until I started educating myself about Hillary and hearing some things about Hillary and hearing what her campaign was putting out there and the dog whistles that was going on with that. Then I had to, okay, yeah. So
but my thing is though, my fault, but as far as Obama, we wanted a black president. We wanted a black. Listen though. Fuck the political. Fuck political right now. We want to show them black
in general,
to look up to. So we can say our black youth, look, you could be president too.
But here's the thing though. Race is always going to play a factor into our decision.
Always, in every single thing we do.
But what I'm saying is this.
We would not have this many white presidents and only one black one.
Of course. But my point is this though. Like when it comes time to vote. Now here's the thing. We're asking people to stop voting for party and start voting for candidate. I'm seeing that everywhere, right? But are we practicing what we're preaching? Are we looking at the policies? Wait. Let me finish. Are we looking at the policies that these people are talking about? Are we looking at the things that they're talking about and not just saying, well, you're better than that guy over there?
So because I've already voted, and now out here in LA, we have Jackie Lacey, who's the DA out here. She has had the police unions have donated over $1 million to her political campaign. She has also done some shiesty stuff besides that. I did not vote for her, and she's a black woman.
I'm sorry, where are you at?
I have no interest. I'm in Los Angeles. Okay. I have look her up. So I did not vote for her whatsoever. There is a Hispanic candidate opposite of her. I read up on him because remember, you don't have to vote for everybody. You can leave that motherfucker blank. Okay? Yeah. So you can leave it blank. So I read up on him to see what he was about, to see who donated to his campaign, to see if he was against corporations donating to his campaign. Things that are points for me with candidates. I researched him. It took me 2 hours alone in LA to go, in California in general, to go over all the propositions that are on the ballot. All the props, all the amendments, and all that. I do my research before I circle or leave a choice blank. You know what I mean? So, like I was saying, Jackie Lacey didn't vote for her, have no interest in voting for her. Now, did I vote for her when she ran the first time? Because I, once again, read her policies. Because when you're looking at a ballot, you don't know what color these people are, but you can guess sometimes you can guess by the names. But once again, when you're researching and seeing who's donating to these people and what they stand for and their prosecution history and what side they tend to lean on, that's what I'm voting with.
Honestly, that's what I like to hear because honestly, I'm not into politics like that. It's not until recently I just started getting interested. Like shit needs to change.
Listen, that's beautiful.
And my thing is like, now I'm watching the debates. I'm actually watching shit. I'd never done that before. Before it was like, fuck it, it's this. But now I'm seeing
my awakening was with Obama. That was my awakening to get more into who these people are and who's backing them and the policies that they're supporting.
Well, give me a sec. So I wanna hear from Justin about.
I'm gonna need their contact. I need their contact.
Right. I'll take a minute here. Probably will be the most unpopular opinion here. I'm actually anti-affirmative action on the whole. And that is for some, it's not political reasons or like racial reasons. It's just kind of more like the concept of a free man or an American and self-responsibility. It's not necessarily the concept of like, I understand like, obviously the history of slavery and separate but equal and redlining districts and all that's absolutely terrible. And I'm obviously happy that our society has moved past as much of that as possible. And but as far as affirmative action of like granting some kind of like extra credit or something towards any kind of goal, whether it's like getting a job or being accepted into school based on these things, it's and obviously it's not something that's affected me, but in my opinion, there's lots of things. I'm very anti help for the sake of help, in the idea that things should be earned, and then that's what validates them in general. So like, for example, with college admissions, there was a huge increase in dropouts from universities that were minorities. So they would get accepted into programs that might have been a bit above their level because they didn't necessarily need to score as high on their SATs to get into a program that that white people or white men were able to get into. They needed to have a higher score to get in. And so these programs that were traditionally geared towards people that had a certain academic level, and that they were allowing minorities in that didn't reach that academic level, they were more likely to fail out and not succeed, and that would then make them want to discontinue the program, and it actually did more damage. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from, is like, anytime, like, you can't just tip the hand, there's gonna be consequences. It's a domino effect, and you can't necessarily foresee what all those consequences are gonna be, because when you put the ripple in the pond, you don't know what that's going to cause. And it's typically better, in my realm. I've noticed kind of like my personal attitude towards things. If you've got the easy way and the hard way, well, typically the easy way isn't worth your time. Like, you might get it done quicker or get there faster, but you're going to experience less or fewer long-term benefits from taking the easy route. And I feel like, with the past that we have as a country, as far as racial relations, there's definitely a gap. And I think to some people, people would call that gap white privilege. I personally don't care for that term, but I see where it's coming from, and I think it's a generational thing. I think that over time, the Black community or the Hispanic community or just women in general or any type of minority group that was in the past held down or held back or not allowed to do this or that, or wasn't given these opportunities, as we move forward with these terrible things in our past, further in our past, they're going to matter less. And like, for example, wealth accumulation, for many decades now, even though we've had equal rights, whether or not those are upheld in practice or not is debatable. But even though we had equal rights, typically the richest in our country were, and probably still are, white. And that's, like a big thing from the left is they want to, not necessarily the Democrats, but the leftist ideologies, Marxists and socialists, they want to abolish private property, because they think that will, make it all a wash or whatever. And I don't think that's necessarily the route to go. I think, white privilege is a small privilege when you compare it to American privilege, or even just living in this day and time privilege, where most of the world, obviously not all of the world, but most of the world has been lifted out of poverty. So not relative poverty, just poverty. But it's something that's going to just get better naturally, and I think it would do everybody better, whites, blacks, women, men, whatever, to let the hard road take its course. Because like everything I've earned in my life, whether it was easier for me or not because of being a white straight man, whatever, I still worked hard for it, and everything of value that I've had, I've worked hard. And that's not to say that certain people don't work hard, but I think you get more personal value out of it, and that's my thought.
Can I chime in on that?
No. No.
All right,
Okay.
Lance.
Okay.
Lance has been sitting back, and I want to.
Lance,
he has to
right.
sit.
I got it, but I want to talk. So, when we're talking about the ideas of white privilege being less impactful than American privilege, I get what you're saying. Being American is a massive privilege, but white privilege is American privilege. That's what it is. You're a white American. It's not that different from being like a white European, but like from Europe, like you have similar privileges, but America, so the idea is that me being a black American makes me less oppressed is not the case. And and what I'm saying is this, like, when you're looking at all the things that you're talking about like socialist ideologies and the left, I think there's a massive amount of miscommunication that's actually happening between the left and the right. And I think it's being perpetuated by our politicians and the media. They don't want us to talk to each other because then they don't want us to agree on all the shit we actually agree on. And they don't want that because then their pockets don't get lined. So they want to tell us that these guys over there, the right, or the left,
like the Second
they're
Amendment.
telling you the other side is trying to abolish. You said something about trying to abolish the what was the
private
word?
Private property.
And I don't think that's what leftists
It's
want.
a leftist principle.
They do that
I don't
already.
think that's necessarily what it is. Right. What they do is they take a socialist principle. This is why I keep hearing people call like Democrats leftists, like socialists and communists, and I'm like,
all different things. But
they're using these extreme terms to scare people into them, whoever the them is. And like out on the group, people say that shit to me all the time, and I'm like, bro, I'm not that. Like, I'm not. And people assume I'm a black man and I'm gay, so I have to be motherfucking a Democrat. I have to be liberal. And all I think about is liberal shit. I want to walk down the street with a wig on and all that.
I want to be left the fuck alone.
But that's the thing. There's a difference between. That's what I wanted to say. There's a difference between. If you don't want to, if you say you want people should earn their own shit. I don't. Hold on. Well, let me say this, and hold on. Let me say this. You say people should earn their own stuff,
all right,
and I agree. Huh? That's fine. That's fine. You could have said that in the chat. Thank you though for being here. You're awesome. I love you. Power. Thank you very much for being here. Brian has to go. Everyone.
Who?
Bye, Brian.
Do you? Yeah. We'll head into final thoughts after this anyway. So
me? I don't have to go.
I thought you just said I have to go.
Oh, I think he meant he wanted to talk.
No.
Okay, I'll let you talk.
That I had something to say.
Okay, got you.
You said you were. All right.
Let me say.
You said you were.
Okay, so
I love you.
I feel like I'm having anyway. So essentially, when you're talking about people earning their own stuff, absolutely, people should earn their own things. People should absolutely. No one's asking for people to be lazy and be handed things, but when you're talking about affirmative action, you're talking about getting out of the way, not giving me anything. I'm not asking you to give me anything. Just stop hindering me from getting shit. Accept that there is a barrier. Accept that there is a barrier for being a woman, for being black, brown, for being gay, accept that there is a barrier, and understand that you being a non-barrier, like you being a non-minority, means that you either are part of the problem or you're not. You don't have to necessarily assist if you don't want to assist, but just get out of the way. And I think that's a lot of what people are asking for, but that's not what it comes off as. Because what I hear a lot of people from the right say is, why should we give? That's not what we're asking. That's not what anybody's asking.
And if your boots have cement in them, how are you picking the motherfuckers up is what I want to know. Like,
if your boots what now?
You pick yourself up by your bootstraps. That whole concept is what I think you're going up, right, Dustin? Everyone is self-sufficient. You're helping yourself.
Hold on for a second, because Brian and Lance did want to say something, and Lance first.
I'm sorry, Brian and Lance. My bad.
Cement.
All right, so just starting from the.
I'm Southern.
But listen, before y'all go, this is it though. Before y'all go, we have to wrap up after this. So these two comments, and please make them concise.
All right, cool. Got you. So starting from the full umbrella, you're talking about this nation was built on our fucking. I'm sorry. It was built on our back. You know what I mean? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to curse. So it's built on our backs. You know what I mean? So saying, oh well, there's no, I work hard for my things. You work hard, but we had to work 3 times harder. You know what I mean? Because you guys have everything already from what we've done for you. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like, okay, we just want a handout. Affirmative action should be a thing because that's owed to us. That's owed to us. We built this off of what we did for y'all. And I feel like everybody knows that. Y'all know that, and I know you're like, but it's true, and it is what it is. We built this. We built everything we are on right now. You and me, we built this on our
for free.
Slavery, killing us, torturing, all that. We built this. So who you to say that? Oh well, I work hard for myself. Yes, you do. I'll give you that. We have to work 3 times as hard to get that same position you work in. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna cut it right there. It said it had to be precise. I have a lot more to say, but we're gonna cut it right there.
Concise. Go ahead, Brian.
Did you say me?
You better go before I go to commercial break.
All right. Hey. Our topic here was, is affirmative action still necessary? Yeah. If we didn't have it, this is only a few years later, we'd be screwing things. We do have a lot of new attitudes now, and I think the generation before me has died or they're in nursing homes, and we fix things. Equal opportunity employment, affirmative action plans by employers still need to be done. We need to do it for probably the next 20, 30 years before we decide that it isn't necessary anymore. And if it isn't necessary, then we don't need to do it. Right now, we still need to do it. That was the question for tonight. That's my point, and I'm sticking to it.
Excellent.
Anybody else?
Great place. So we're gonna head into our final thoughts, but first we're going to do.
We need more time on this, Durian.
I mean, we can still look. How about this? This is what we'll do. We'll do our final thoughts, and anybody who wants to hang out. What happens every week after we do our final thoughts and leave? Usually the panelists stick around and we debate. But if y'all want, we can do the debate live. So if people want to keep up with it, we can just stay on, and whoever wants to leave wants to stay in. Call it the after hours tonight, baby.
Are you serious?
I might need me some Hennessy and some tequila. Okay, I need a blunt. All right,
Oh,
so let's
can I
go
get
to
one?
let's do our. I mean, if I can throw it to you to Canada,
That
sure.
would be beautiful.
All right, let's hear our final commercial break for the night. That is June's Beats, produced by my uncle, who does custom-made beats, music, compositions. If you need anything like that for your tracks, hit me up, admin at woenellymedia.com, ADMIN at WOENELLYMEDIA.com. All right. Okay, so we're gonna do final thoughts tonight. After we do final thoughts, I'll play the final video, and then we'll just stay on for after hours chat tonight. All right. So first what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this last part of it and clip that off and make it a little special nugget for the people. All right. So let's start our final thoughts for anyone who's not staying afterward, and let's start off with Danny. Actually, I'm gonna end with Danny. Let me start off with Lance.
Emily.
All right, cool. So, final thoughts. First of all, thank you for having me on the panel. This is fucking dope.
Thanks for being here.
But so what I do want to say is, it's very clear that just remember, when you're sitting in your crib and you're chilling, you're drinking your tea, and you're chilling, you're drinking a drink, remember how this nation was built. Remember that. And remember, we didn't get anything after it was done. And remember, and see how we're treated today. You can go on the news anytime and see us getting lynched on national TV, and it's normal. You can fix your face all you want, but it is what it is. So that's all I'm saying. So just remember that privilege, and remember we're although the land of the free, all that good stuff, but we are not equal. We're not equal.
All right.
That's what I'm saying. So we are, but we're not treated equal, and that's it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Great. Emily?
Oh, I wasn't ready. I feel like, people ask, the question of the show was, do we still need it? And I think that when you look at the numbers, things aren't equal yet. I was just like watching a video that was saying, this is a whole other topic we could get off on. Wait, I don't like how I worded that. It doesn't matter.
Writing.
And where they were talking about like how at Harvard, when you look at like what percentage of the population, someone was talking about this already. I think maybe it was Danny. Like what percentage of the population Black people are versus like what percentage. It's like way less. Like they're underrepresented at Harvard. And I mean, to me, that right there is really like all I would need to see to feel like, yeah, we still need it. I mean, it's not, the numbers don't look the way we know they're supposed to. And has there ever been a white person who got passed over for a job or a spot at a university because of some sort of affirmative action? Probably. I'm sure that it's happened. But you know, I do kind of go back to like what Lance was saying when I think about that stuff, and I'm like, I don't think that that's a whole lot to ask based on everything that's happened for like a couple of white people to get, and maybe it'll happen to me one day and I'll be really pissed. I don't know, but oh yeah, I'm done.
Why?
He was saying to wrap it up.
He don't run
No,
this
that's
shit.
not what he was saying. That's not what he was saying.
Oh, well, I'm done anyway because I just got a little high and I need to be done.
Okay.
I need this in my life.
A good commercial
And
break.
I'm done, so I'm done.
Okay. So, Brian, what's your final thought?
Give him about 10 seconds now.
Hey, get your flu shots and don't argue with me. And I am not equal with anybody who's on this panel right now because you are all awesome.
Thank you. That's your final thought? He low-key did give a final thought before we went to commercial, so I'll let that slide. Dondre?
Oh, Lordy. Oh, hi. First, I'm going to say I need to speak up. I'm tired of this hand. I'm going to start shooting at y'all.
Oh, you know, I have a final thought about Keisha and Lance. Anyway, so you go first. But I love
y'all. I do love y'all. Okay. But truly, I'm gonna bring up I'm Canadian once again. So the equal opportunity thing is a bit more established here. Affirmative action, in my opinion, settles quotas into organizations that kind of forms representation to the public eye, but the things that the people in those circles are receiving is not equal. A lot of times, it's not the same. So, I mean, shoot, I am Japanese, Jamaican, and Irish. But if somebody were looking me in the face, they would only see black, which causes that, like, dichotomy, if you get what I'm saying. So, that's just the food for thought, in my opinion. I will always stand on that one.
And I want to comment on that. That's why I like Halle Berry so much. Because Halle Berry is one of those light-skinned women who knows that like being light-skinned gets her privilege, but she always stands in her blackness. She's always like, I'm black, period. Because that's how I'm going to be seen. And also, I like the way she walks. It's nice.
Thank you.
Okay. Justin?
Oh, geez. Okay. Let's see. I remember getting called out and I had some thoughts and then I forgot them. Bootstraps. Okay, so my argument wasn't so much of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I think we all have to do that in order to make ends meet. I think there's nothing easy about living the lives we live in general. But it's more of just a just the sense of accomplishment, even from just like a personal perspective of, you know, say you did work hard for something, and you have to look back and think, you know, did I get that opportunity because of this or of that, or, you know, had I not gotten that opportunity, could I have gotten something better? You know, like I was saying with like the dropout rate in the universities that have the affirmative action stuff. You know, say you could have gotten a better education if you were at something more your level. So it's just, like I said, it's not necessarily, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to do affirmative action. I definitely think it's important culturally to, you know, lift up each other no matter what the scenarios are here. But I think end of the day, your results are going to be better, stronger, more long term, be able to be passed on from generation to generation. If it's something that's just purely earned. It's just my thought.
Excellent. Keisha. Key. Sorry, bro.
Yeah. So I completely agree that this life is hard, can be hard for a majority of people living in this country. But I think the overall point that affirmative action had was to lessen the gap that was created in this country. And if we're still seeing a gap in which there's increased Black minorities in the prison system, there's still redlining going on, there's still voter suppression happening, there's still housing discrimination happening, there's still all of these things that are happening in order to suppress people of color, and I'm speaking specifically about Black people, because I'm Black, who do work hard, who do put in 100% into everything they do, and are trying to just go to work, go home, take care of their families, make a good living, just like everybody else. If all of these barriers are put in front of them and prevent them from getting loans and handouts from the government, such as like a lower percentage rates on loans that our white counterparts get, then that's a problem. So the overall thing is, I think your name is Paul, right?
Me?
We got the wrong person. I'm sorry, but I think someone down here mentioned that. How do you fix this gap without the government coming in and creating policies in order to correct this issue and the blatant racism in this issue? So if our answer is like to do away with affirmative action, how else are we going to fix it? And you can't rely on the free will of the people, a majority of the people, to correct things if you find that a majority of them are fine with how they are because they benefit from it. Like there was a point in time where you had a majority of white Americans who did not agree with the Civil Rights Act. And if the government didn't step in and create the Civil Rights Act, then where would that leave us? And that was only 54 years ago, around 54 years ago. So
okay.
Yeah.
Can I make a real quick to that?
Mm-hmm.
Not yet.
Okay.
Write it down.
All
Write
right.
it down. Write it down. Just write it down. We're gonna talk about it in a minute.
Sure.
And Danny.
Okay. So there's a couple of questions that you kind of have to ask, and from that you can sort of formulate a stance and an opinion, right? So first question is where are we, right? So the question is, do we still need affirmative action? Okay, we needed it in the 60s and it was good, but maybe we don't need it now. Okay, but the question is do we think things have equaled out? Do we think that the problem is solved? If we think that the problem is solved, then okay, we'll start there and we'll say maybe we don't need affirmative action anymore. But if you really believe that there are not companies out there that just wouldn't hire people named Shaniqua or DeAndre, or if you don't think that there are companies that wouldn't hire those people or wouldn't hire based off of visual interviews, if you think those don't exist, if you think that no racism is out there and all these companies are just going to be, without government telling them or anybody telling them, that they're going to be equal on their hiring, if you think that, you're fucking naive. The end. So you either think that and then you're like, okay, let's get rid of affirmative action, or you don't believe that because it's not fucking true, and so you got to be like, well, we got to do something, right? So what do we do now? All right, so that's is it necessary? Now, question is, are we a society? Are we, as American citizens, are we a society, or are we a collection of 350 million individuals who don't give a fuck about each other, right? So if we're a society, then we need to work together as a society to elevate all members of the society, right? Now, I'm not saying that everything needs to be equal. We need to redistribute wealth everywhere. I'm saying, like what Duryea said, just get out of people's way. And we have so many obstacles in people's way for all different kinds of things, right? It could be race, it could be gender, it could be sexual preference. Just, we're not asking for people to give up the stuff they worked hard for. What we're saying is when other people work hard for the same shit, they should have their shit too, right? So let's get that stuff out of the way. And that's not saying that not everyone has their own struggles. They do. So we all help each other with our struggles, right? And if we can get everyone at least to a baseline, then good. Now we're at a place where we can move forward. So then my next point is we talk about, and Emily kind of touched on this when she says, hey, some people probably have lost things that they wouldn't have otherwise got because of affirmative action. And maybe one day that's going to be me and I'll be mad, right? And that's true. But in a society, so if we're a society and not 350 million individuals, in a society, people's individual anecdotal stories are a drop in the bucket, right? If one person didn't get their thing, okay, that sucks for them. But what is the greater harm in our society? Is it a greater harm that people are being left behind? Like groups, like entire groups of people are being left behind? Or is it a greater harm that one person kind of at the bottom of the entry point, honestly, didn't get into their college or didn't get into the job because we're trying to remove all those obstacles for a vast amount of people, right? So that's like, you just kind of like are wondering if some people are going to get hurt so that a lot of people can get better, right? It's a greater harm thing. On your thing about it's better to have earned your stuff, I agree 100% that it is better to feel like you earned everything you got. Conversely, it is better to be given some shit that maybe you didn't quite deserve or didn't earn than it is to fucking starve or be without heat in the fucking winter or to be cast out or to live in poverty or all these things. So you kind of got to weigh that, right? So, all right, the end. In a perfect world, we would not need affirmative action. We are not living in that perfect world yet. We're just not. And everyone just work hard. Don't worry about the stories of like the people, the individual stories of people who got over somehow or did or whatever. That's small stuff. It's not how it works. It's not how it happens all over the place. There are not, welfare queens in flocks, down in the cities. It's just not happening, right? All of that stuff is inflated. At the end, what we need to do is we just need to look, what's the big picture and how do we elevate everybody so that we all have equal opportunity? We don't need equal outcome, okay? We don't need equal outcome. I get that. But at least equal opportunity.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. So my first thing I'm going to say before I do my final thoughts is I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank everyone who's watching. Please stick around for our after hours where I'm going to let Keisha and Justin and Lance just yell. And it's going to be interesting, I'm sure. So I also I want to thank everybody who's been with us from the first episode. Everyone on Twitch that I saw tonight, I appreciate y'all stepping in and I seeing you on the comments. Anyone who watches, because this show can't happen without you. I really appreciate if you're new to the Talk It Out family. Welcome to the family. Come back and see us every Thursday. Next week and the week after, coming up on the topics. Next week we're doing a topic about online dating. And then after that, we're doing a topic of religion versus spirituality. And they will be excellent, I'm sure. So my final thought for tonight is I first want to talk about, there was this idea that the government coming in the government has to change, make policies in order for us to close that gap. But I also think there's a part of it that comes down to the individual. There has to be a choice as an individual to care about people. When Danny said the thing about, are we going to be 3 million people who don't give a fuck about each other, or are we going to be a country? That's really what we're asking. At this point, that's what we're voting for. We're voting to be selfish or to be selfless. And maybe the candidates that we pick aren't always perfect, but it's clear which is leaning where. And I think that if there's a cultural shift in the way that we think, where we put things like apathy to the side, where we decide to care and take action to stand up for others, then we'll have a massive change. As far as whether affirmative action is actually necessary still, sadly, I think it is. But I think there needs to be some sort of adjustments to it to make sure it's actually helping the people it's supposed to help. And I'm going to talk about that more on the after hours. So if this is your first time being with us here on Talk It Out, I want to remind you that it is a space where people of opposing views can get together and have a healthy and productive dialogue in a respectful way, keeping in mind that it's not always about proving who's right or who's wrong. Sometimes it's simply about listening and being heard. Have a good night.